Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Iron Maiden-A-Thon. We're finally back after a short break in the Iron Maiden marathon action here of reviews of all of their studio albums. Today we are of course talking about The Final Frontier. This was my first Iron Maiden album that came out after I became a fan of theirs. I bought this one on day one. This is the first copy of it that I got. This is the t-shirt from the Final Frontier World Tour show that I went to. It was one of the only concerts that Iron Maiden has played in LA that I've missed, was on the Final Frontier World Tour, the second leg or whatever it was, where they played actual songs from the Final Frontier as opposed to just El Dorado and then a bunch of reunion era songs. First, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe and do all that YouTube stuff. We're on the way to 500 subscribers. We're going to try to get there before the year's anniversary of the channel. And make sure you come back for more horror, metal, Blu-ray, movie, collector, video game stuff, content. After Iron Maiden-A-Thon is done, we might be kicking off Judas Priest-A-Thon, so look out for that. But we'll get to Iron Maiden-A-Thon, and we'll get to The Final Frontier. So, it was recorded from January and March of 2010 at Compass Point in the Nassau, Bahamas, and it was released on August 13th, 2010. So some background on it: on June 8th, my birthday, of 2010, they released the track list, the release date, and the album artwork, along with the song El Dorado was available for download, so you could hear El Dorado before the album came out. The title and a quote from Steve Harris from a little while ago saying that, oh yeah, you know, 15 is a pretty good number of albums. This was the 15th album, and it is called The Final Frontier, so that made people crap their pants and think, oh god, this is Iron Maiden's last album, what are we going to do, what are we going to do? Luckily for us, they've made 2 more albums since then, and so this was not the last album that we had from Iron Maiden. It was a bit of a joke from the band. Bruce Dickinson thought of the title a long time before they actually recorded this album, just to screw with people. So it's not a concept album like Seventh Son of a Seventh Son would be, or, you know, How I Think Somewhere in Time might be one, or How I Think A Matter of Life and Death might be one. This is not a concept album. It just has some very prevalent themes throughout, such as exploration, expectation, discovery, life, death, a lot of the stuff that you would get from Iron Maiden, but there's a lot more on this album in particular about that explorative aspect of space and the ocean and stuff like that throughout history. And so it's pretty interesting that this album has that theme. Melvin Grant did the cover, so you can see the cover. It's a nice alien Eddie getting ready to feast on some astronaut skulls with what looks like a fork. I always thought that was a little weird that he has a fork on the album cover, or a space fork. But it's a very cool album art. It's very cool on the t-shirt. Melvin Grant did that one, so he did a great job on this. The band returned to Nassau for the first time since Somewhere in Time, and they were one of the last bands to record at the studio before it shut down later in 2010. And so they went back and they said, oh wow, it looks exactly the same as we left it. Everything's sort of in disarray, disrepair. But they got a good recording out of it with producer Kevin Shirley. And so this one comes in at 76 minutes and 34 seconds, which was their longest album to date when this came out. And now, of course, it has been eclipsed by the next 2 albums, The Book of Souls and Senjutsu. It went number 1 in 28 countries, but it only had 1 single, which was El Dorado. They did have a radio edit version of Welcome Home, and they did have an edited version of The Final Frontier without the Satellite 15 part at the beginning of it for radio, but they did not release those as singles. It's only one for El Dorado, which came out, of course, on June 8th, 2010 as a free download. It's their highest charting album ever in the US up until, of course, 2021 Senjutsu. It peaked at number 4. Senjutsu peaked at number 3 in the US. This got to, I believe, number 2 in the UK, where it got number 2 also for Senjutsu. Fuck you, Drake, for your stupid emoji album, whatever the hell, beating it out. But they got to number 2. It's a pretty heavy accomplishment for a metal band in 2021. They actually won their first Grammy Award ever for the best metal performance on El Dorado. So you've have Iron Maiden throughout history with all the great tracks that they have, and they have some pretty mainstream tracks. You know, they have like The Trooper, Number the Beast, Run to the Hills, Fear of the Dark, stuff like that. They had never won a Grammy up until this point. They won for El Dorado for best metal performance, so take that with what you will. Finally, Steve Harris has writing credits across the entire album. It's only the 4th album in their history where he has writing credits across the board on every track. So you have that bit of Steve Harris mixed into every single track. So the tracks that you would normally think of that would be like Smith-Dickinson tracks, but Steve Harris has his little bit of magic added to it. So with that said, let's get through the album and look at the pretty artwork, and then we'll get to the track by track analysis. So here is the cover art. It's Eddie eating some astronaut faces. Here is the back. Got a nice planet there, and this awesome Iron Maiden Eddie skull. I don't know if you can see that very well, but yeah, that's always an awesome logo. I love that logo. And we'll take a look at the booklet after we take a look at the disc. And there's more of that wonderful Alien Eddie art. And then a big one of a yellow Alien Eddie with the skull and crossbones looking deal. So here we go with the booklet. We've got the awesome alien looking Eddie there. The booklet is very, I haven't opened this in a while. It's very stiff. Some planets and the lyrics and the liner notes and all that good stuff. Here and here. And there's some concept art for Eddie. That's really cool to see what he could have looked like on the cover. And then more thank yous, liner notes, lyrics, stuff like that. And then finally, the band looking very spacey. So this album is pretty decent. It's a pretty good one, in my opinion. But let's get through to the track-by-track analysis right now. Kicking off the track-by-track analysis, we have Satellite 15, ... The Final Frontier. This is a 2-part song by Adrian Smith and Steve Harris, coming in at 8 minutes and 40 seconds. It is a long one to open the album. People that were complaining about Senjutsu being a long opening track might have to go back and check this one out. But really, it is 2 songs split into one. So, first 4 minutes and 36 seconds is a sort of spacey, very, it sounds like space. I don't know what more you want me to describe it like. I know you can't hear anything in space, but it sounds very spacey, science fiction-y. Bruce Dickinson blasting out commands on a ship, and then the ship goes off into space. It's a very Star Trek feeling kind of space here, not a Star Wars kind of feeling, of course. Second half is about the other Final Frontier, not space, but death. And so it is about an astronaut who knows that his death is coming. He's, careening off into space, and there's nothing that they can do. They talk about their life and how they don't regret anything, really, but they do want to say goodbye to their family just that one last time. It's a great album opener. It's a great show opener. They opened it up on the Final Frontier World Tour with this track. There's a live recording of that, a live DVD that is fantastic, where you can get to hear a couple of these songs live. They are much better live. If you don't like this album, check out the live versions, because you might actually enjoy them a lot more. They're just more punchy, more powerful live with that extra oomph of the guitar. When the teaser for this came out, it was like a 30-second teaser of the music video. I listened to it like 300 times, because I was like, oh, it's new Iron Maiden. I gotta hear it. So I listened to it a bunch of times, and then the song came out, and it was equally as impressive to me. I really like this song. It sets a tone for the rest of the album. It's very long, and so you have to kind of delve into it a little more to get the full breadth of listening, but it's a good album opener. Number 2, we have El Dorado, the single, the song you heard before the album came out. It's by Adrian Smith, Steve Harris, and Bruce Dickinson. It is 6 minutes and 49 seconds long. It is a lot longer than I thought it was. I thought the song was way shorter from what I remembered and what I've heard, and what I misremembered it, I guess. But it was the first track off the album performed live on the first leg of the Final Frontier World Tour that was only basically that song, and then a bunch of reunion-era songs and some classics sprinkled in. It uses the 2008-2007 financial crisis as a backdrop, with the myth of El Dorado, the city of gold that everybody promised that was there, and that actually wasn't there, and people just stole money to get people there. Overall, it's a decent one. Of like the single songs, like the single sounding songs that are on these albums, especially these newer ones, it's probably my least favorite. It's not my least favorite track on the album, but of those like special single songs that are supposed to draw the people in, this one definitely my least favorite of the bunch. It just feels like it's really long. It being 6 minutes and 49 seconds, I thought it was shorter than that. But it's still pretty heavy. It's one of the heavier songs on the album, and it sort of sounds like classic Iron Maiden. So for the people out there that want to hear more of that from the band, you've got El Dorado to listen to. But we'll go on to number 3, which is Mother of Mercy by Adrian Smith and Steve Harris, coming in at 5 minutes and 20 seconds. This song is shorter, and it's more punchier, it's heavier. It starts off really slow, but then once you get around to the like minute and a half mark, it really kicks into gear. You might have had like a crazy sort of track if you just cut off that intro and you just make it into like a 4-minute something song here. That might have been really cool to hear a version of that track. But it's about a soldier repenting their crimes during a holy war, maybe the Crusades, who knows, as they die. And it's really one of the heavier tracks on this album. If you really like this new form of Iron Maiden where they have these heavy, heavy, heavy guitars and they're a little slower, but they're just like in your face, this song is really for you. This song is fantastic. It really sounds like it could have been off of A Matter of Life and Death. It sounds like it's very in that sort of range of songs. The narrator went off to war for money, and they definitely paid the price because they died. It's one of the heavier tracks of the reunion era. One of my favorite tracks from the album. I really like Mother of Mercy. Number 4, we have a ballad. We have Coming Home. That's Adrian Smith, Steve Harris, Bruce Dickinson. Comes in at 5 minutes and 52 seconds. So the people out there that might listen to Writing on the Wall and whine about how it doesn't sound like Iron Maiden. Yeah, this doesn't sound like a Bruce Dickinson, Adrian Smith song. Well, I'll give you Welcome Home, or Coming Home, Welcome Home. Not Coming Home, pardon me, not Welcome Home by King Diamond, but Coming Home by Iron Maiden. I'll give you that. This song doesn't sound like a lot of other Iron Maiden songs, but it does follow that sort of feeling that they have with this reunion era. This is a band's band, and this is a band's song. So like Journeyman is the musician's song. This is a musician's song, coming home off of a long tour, going home to the UK or wherever you're coming from. And it's about a pilot flying them home. Bruce Dickinson probably has a thing or two to say about that in the song. This one is really only Iron Maiden could do this. This one sounds amazing live on that live record, of course, the En Vivo live album. It sounds fantastic. It's a softer song that you kind of needed to hear after the battering ram that was Mother of Mercy, but this one's really good. I really like this track too. It kind of slows things down until you get into the fastest track on the album, what I think should have been the lead single for this album. El Dorado is fine, but I think if you wanted to catch people's attention and you really wanted people to, you know, start off the album strong, you swap El Dorado in this song, and that song is The Alchemist by Yannick Gers, Steve Harris, and Bruce Dickinson, coming in at 4 minutes and 29 seconds. So, once again, I'm going to complain about all the people whining out there, and if you're going to whine and say, oh, but I want to hear everything off Power Slave, oh, that's the only good Iron Maiden album, everything after that sucks, here's a song for you. You can go back to the past for a little bit for 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and you can listen to The Alchemist, because it is a very Power Slave, Peace of Mind, Number of the Beast sounding song. It's very fast. It's very mystical sounding, but in the end, it's actually about a British mathematician. So this one, there's not that much to say. I really like this song. I think this should have been the lead single. I think this should have led the album. I think people might think differently of the album, even with that small choice, because you start off with just a sort of long, grueling song with El Dorado that's very punchy and energetic, but it's very long. This song doesn't overstay its welcome. You get your classic Iron Maiden structure, and then you get out. So this one might have been a better choice to lead off with, who knows. But for now, you can listen to The Alchemist, and it's a pretty good one. The 6th track off the album, I had to check and see what number 5 was. The 6th track is The Isle of Avalon by Adrian Smith and Steve Harris, coming in at 9 minutes and 6 seconds. So I will say that this last half of the album is incredibly long. The next 5 songs come in at like 44 minutes, which is sort of like an old classic Iron Maiden album's worth of music. So you get like a whole extra album basically here with the first half and the second half. This is a very weird album because it does split here, and you have this last half that are these long, long progressive songs, sort of like Senjutsu. Everybody thought that was a wild thing to do. Turns out, on the Final Frontier, you get it with the last 5 songs, not just the last 3. But it's a lengthy track that sort of talks about mystical island of stories long ago, the Isle of Avalon, of course. It's pretty progressive, prog rock, prog metal, whatever you want to say. It's a very progressive track. There's a lot of tempo changes, a lot of solos. Lyrically, it's filled with mysticism and references to ancient legends about the Isle of Avalon. You know, it's not my favorite track on the album. It's probably the weakest one overall, in my opinion here. I just, you know, of the bunch, this is a pretty great album, but this one probably feels like the one that could have gotten lopped off, really. It's not bad by any means. It's obviously a really good Iron Maiden track, but of all the tracks on the album, it's probably the weakest one. Next up, we have, coming in at 7 minutes and 48 seconds, we have track 7, Starblind by Smith, Harris, and Dickinson. Legendary pairing, of course, for songwriting. And this one focuses on the final frontier of life, once again, in death. So you have your whole life, and then your final frontier is death. Challenges the views of a bunch of different religions. It's a very religious sort of track, speaking about the ills of religion and when it comes to the afterlife and how you might be living your life in the eyes of a religion, and then all of a sudden you die and you go to the afterlife, and it's absolutely nothing like your religion described. The song describes somebody of faith dying and then making it to the afterlife, and it's not anything like they wanted it to be. It combines the various themes of space and religion and exploration in this track without getting preachy, which is nice because, you know, you don't want to get preached at by Iron Maiden here. It's another progressive track here with a lot of tempo changes and Bruce Dickinson just wailing away. I really like this one. This one's pretty good. The chorus is pretty sick with Bruce Dickinson just belting out the word Starblind. It's a great song. Probably one of the best on the album. Not the best. The best is coming, though. It was really hard to decide what my favorite track on this album is. It's either track 8 or track 10. The Talisman is by Yannick Gers and Steve Harris, coming in at 9 minutes and 3 seconds. It is a truly special song. This one is epic in every sense of the word. It's about a voyage on the sea in search of a new land. So you're going off to find this talisman that's drawing you out to the sea. And so this talisman is leading the ship and their crew out to wherever they're going. And as the song goes on, the currents and waves, you can sort of feel it with the tides of the ship. And it gets more and more dangerous, and the lyrics match that with the music. And so you get this whole storytelling experience of like, oh, the voyage, the journey is getting very, very, very dangerous for these people on this ship, and you can feel it with the music going along with it. It feels very much like Rime of the Ancient Mariner in that way, where that song goes through the epic poem and sort of changes the tempo with how that song and the story goes along. Follows the themes of exploration and homesickness, once again, just like a lot of other tracks on this album. The narrator dies before the voyage is over, and they got through the hardest part of their journey, but they could not make it to reach their goal. The Talisman is a great one. They played it live. You can hear it live on the En Vivo record. I keep mentioning that because it is a great live album if you want to check out some live Iron Maiden stuff. But we'll get to the 9th and second to last track here. One that was sort of misunderstood by me when I first listened to the album. A lot of this latter half of the album, I actually got a better appreciation for the older I got. As this album came out when I was, like 16. So I just liked my music differently back then. I wanted more of the, not saying that the man children out there that only want to hear Power Slave stuff, but I was a little bit of a child and I only wanted to hear more aggressive, fast Iron Maiden. And as I got older and wiser and smarter, the songs like The Man Who Would Be King, which is the 9th track here, that comes at 8 minutes and 28 seconds. It's by Dave Murray and Steve Harris. This one might be, if not for Senjutsu, this would be the pinnacle of Iron Maiden's sort of prog metal sound that they've done. It's a truly epic song. These last 3 tracks are very epic in their scope and everything. It tells the story of a man who has killed another man and how he basically has to go through his life knowing that he's killed somebody and how it ruins his life, how he regrets it. The lyrics don't speak about a man actually becoming king, but lamenting on what he could have been with his life had he not taken another man's life. So, you know, oh, if I wouldn't have killed this guy, who knows what I could have done? I could have been king. There's more solos, more tempo changes, more progressive stuff than any other track on the record. This sort of really combines and makes that pinnacle, or would-be pinnacle, of the Iron Maiden sound if it were not for Senjutsu coming out. It gives Yannick, Dave, and Adrian really just a massive stage to stretch out and just be the best guitarists that they can and complement one another really well. Because while one's soloing, there's another playing. The other two are playing background instruments and stuff like that, and it's very awesome in that way to hear. It sounds very orchestral. But there has to be a best song on the album. There has to be a main event. For the last couple albums, we have had the main event, and this is the main event. This is track number 10. This is Where the Wild Wind Blows by Steve Harris. Comes in at 10 minutes and 59 seconds. The world is supposedly ending, and according to those in power, the government, the media, the apocalypse is imminent. So a couple prepares for the worst. They have their supplies together. They make a fallout shelter. They make a bomb shelter, whatever you want to do. The song ends with a rare British earthquake, and people panic, and the couple head to their shelter. They think that the bombs are dropping. They think that the world is ending, and they lock themselves in their shelter. And what ends up happening, it was just an earthquake, and it's not actually anything happening. It ends on a poignant and sort of hauntingly beautiful way where they find the couple in their fallout shelter, and they, instead of facing whatever disaster loomed outside, they poisoned themselves and committed suicide. And so it really is eerily prescient in today's marketplace of sensationalism and exaggeration and all of the stupid stuff that goes on the news, and, you know, people, you know, sensationalizing things that don't really need to be sensationalized, and the doomsayers out there spouting, basically. But people out there are duped by horrible news coverage of things that are nothing are meant to be something, or made to be something, and things that are something are made to be nothing. So it really just goes to show that at the end of this song, no matter what happens, it's just another day where the wild wind blows. And so that ending of that track to this album is just perfect. It is a stone cold classic. This song is stunning live. Like I said, for the previous couple tracks on that En Vivo live album, this one is perfection. This is the best song on the album. It's one of the best songs in their catalog. Where the Wild Wind Blows is beautiful. It is haunting. It is Iron Maiden perfection. And with that, we're done with the track-by-track analysis, and we'll go to the conclusion for this album and the review score. Where the Wild Wind Blows felt like a swan song. It felt like this was the end for the band. It felt like this was their last track, and it very well could have been. Luckily, it wasn't, and we've gotten 2 more brand new, awesome Iron Maiden albums. But it turns out that the title was misleading. It was just a big joke by Bruce Dickinson, so haha, jokes on all of us crazy Iron Maiden fans that freaked out. Like I said, this was the first Iron Maiden album that came out since I became a fan. So I went out and bought it and immediately just listened to the hell out of it. Just ate up everything about it. So it holds a very special place in my heart. Taking off the nostalgia goggles and putting on the reviewer's goggles here, this one requires a lot of patience. It requires multiple listens, especially the last half of this album. It requires you to really just dig deep into the lyrics, really dig deep into the music, and you will get a much better appreciation for this album after listening to it a couple of times. You know, really, you're robbing yourself of an experience if you just put it on and listen to it all the way and go, it's not for me, songs are too long, it's not Power Slave. If you're doing that, you're robbing yourself of a fantastic album. You're robbing yourself of the 3 absolutely epic tracks at the end here. I'm gonna repeat myself on the Senjutsu review with that, but we'll get to that after the next one. It heavily rewards you for listening to it multiple times. If you listen to it all the way through, you can even pick some of the tracks here and there. It probably would have benefited from the Talisman, not the Talisman, the Alchemist being the leading track, the lead single. People might have enjoyed it a little bit more. On the tour, they played Final Frontier, Satellite 15, the Talisman, Coming Home, and Where the Wild Wind Blows, and El Dorado. But I would give this album, in the written review, I gave it an 8 out of 10. I would hold that score to an 8 out of 10. This one is not the best of the Reunion era, but it comes pretty damn close. Some of the tracks are a little bit long. Some of them could have been edited down a little bit. But you get a very fine Iron Maiden album here with the Final Frontier, and it's among their best. It's among the best of the year 2010. It's among the best of this decade, of this century, whatever you want to say, of heavy metal. But we'd have to wait 5 years to get a new album. We'd have to wait until 2015's The Book of Souls to get a new Iron Maiden album after this one. They went on the Made in England tour, which you'll hear all about in the next video. But for now, from me, from Eddie, from everybody, that'll do it. Let me know in the comments, what you think of the Final Frontier, if you think I'm full of shit or not. But that'll do it from me to you for now. And so I will see you again another time. Check back for more Iron Maiden-A-Thon and heavy metal stuff. And thank you for watching.